Unless you're one of the 80 people that were there at the Decon event a couple of weeks ago, you're going to want to stick around and watch this video to see the unveiling of the latest new Bengal machine. If you haven't heard of the Decent Espresso machine, it's the most advanced coffee machine on the planet right now. It's going to blow your mind, so let's check it out. G'day mate, my name's Ride, I'm your coffee coach. So I went to Decon 1 event in Hong Kong just a couple of weeks ago to nerd out with all the other coffee nerds there, drink way too much coffee. Some would say way too much, I say not enough. And of course, the unveiling of the Bengal coffee machine there. So stick around, I'm gonna share with you my initial thoughts on that. But I also wanted to share with you the Decon and what to expect if you're going to go to the next Decon event. So what actually was Decon? Well, it's Decent's conference. So Decent is an espresso machine manufacturer based out of Hong Kong, and they wanted to start basically nerding out of coffee. And what better machine to do it on than the Decent, because it maps every single variable you can think of, from the temperature to the water pressure to the flow to the weight to the time, and everything's graphed, and you can really look at and analyze your coffee and then compare it with others. And you can do any style of coffee. It could do filter, it can do Allonge, which is like a filter roast but made into espresso. It can do tea now. It can make your béarnaise sauce. Like, it literally can do pretty much everything. I wanted to babysit my kids. They said it's not legal yet, but maybe we can work on that in the future. And Decon was essentially a two-day conference to get a bunch of coffee nerds in the room to all share their ideas and talk with each other. We had Scott Rayo, the roasting genius. We had a water sommelier. We had a tea sommelier. I got to speak with the engineer behind these machines. There were business owners. There was a YouTuber coffee nerd there. There was this picky chemist roaster there. And of course, the Steve Jobs of coffee himself, John Buckman. But he's actually nice. This video is not a promotion, but as I was one of the speakers actually there, I thought it'd be a really great way to share this information with you in case you're wondering maybe of attending next year. So the conference is held in Hong Kong, which I have to admit wasn't really on my bucket list of places to go. But 80 or so other people needed an excuse to go visit Hong Kong, and what better excuse than to drink a ton of coffee, look at insane technology, and just nerd out with a bunch of random strangers from around the world. And Hong Kong blew me away with its bustling inner city culture, its city zoos that you can free to walk through, bizarre foods, specialty cafes, and awesome hidden cocktail bars. I would highly recommend you visiting there if you haven't already, and you don't even need a coffee excuse to go visit there. Just go and see the sights. It's amazing. But of course, the event was excellent, and I do hope they invite me back next time. So what were the highlights of the event? Well, we had the coffee legend, Scott Rayo, sharing some of his coffees there, how to perfect espresso and filter extractions on the Decent Espresso machine. Thanks a lot, Scott. As if my puck prep wasn't already long enough, now I'm spending an extra 10 minutes picking out every single bean that I see has got a defect on it. But honestly, it was so good to hear from those level of experts to understand what is actually going on in the world of coffee and why coffee is starting to go so expensive because of the amount of preparation going into each cup. There was Soso there, the brains behind the Half Decent scale, and his journey in discovering how bad a lot of the scales are, even the expensive ones, and making a new brand of espresso scale that's going to kind of have its own little revolution in the scale world, I reckon. It's all open source, so everyone can see and access the software and mod it and do whatever they want. But they're talking about things in there that is going to really change the way that we use scales in terms of, and I will do a video more on that in the future, but just think recipes built in, tailored to exactly your machine, and not just coffee recipes too, but other recipes as well. Really incredible stuff there. We had Colin, the water messiah. He doesn't call himself that, but we just called him that because I've never seen someone get so involved in analyzing the water, but we got to try different coffees with added potassium, added sodium, all of these extra minerals into your coffee water to change, and showed how much impact they have on your coffee and its flavor. There was this other guy, you might recognize him. He did a talk on the state of Aussie coffee and how there's a direct correlation between cafe owners and male pattern baldness, so maybe. There was also this picky chemist who roasts his coffee lighter than the Northern Lights, And if you want to try some, you can look below in the comments section there. I've got a list there, and to Scott Rayo's if you want to check out some of his beans as well. And if you order from either of those guys, make sure you tell them hi from me. And if you guys are interested in any of these videos, you would like to see more in depth, I've got a lot of footage from the event, so I can share with you more on each of these characters and what they're about. They're so interesting, you could just watch them for hours. So drop a comment below and let me know if you want to see anything in further to break up these videos between coffee machine reviews. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, champ. Oh, and did I mention that we went to the weddings of the owners? I mean, who does that? Who invites a bunch of strangers from around the world to go to your wedding? Well, these guys do, and that's one of the things I really love about them, but more on that in a second. And of course, we were all there for the main event, which was the unveiling of the Bengal espresso machine, the first of its kind, the most advanced machine that we've ever seen on the planet. I talked to the engineers behind the machine. One of them is a fellow Aussie, just lives on the other side of the river here in Brisbane. And, you know, we know our coffee's the best, right? So Aussies really know our coffee. That's probably why this coffee machine's so advanced. So what did I discover about the Decent company and this new espresso machine? Well, gosh darn it, I discovered that there's a rare breed of businesses that actually want to do good in the world, impact people's lives, and not focus just on profits. I mean, how annoying is it that they overlook maximizing profits to actually focus on the best product and customer service and the journey and just being generous? So rude. But John and Ray explained that they didn't just want to make a coffee machine and tell you how to make coffee. They wanted to make a coffee machine that mapped everything, and the philosophy behind creating the DE1 and now the Bengal, Ray said it himself, I can't say it better. This is what he said.
You know, the general idea is that I don't want to tell you how to do your coffee, but I want to make it so that you can do something pretty accurately, and if you can't do it accurately, you can at least repeat it. So, you know, we sell the paintbrushes, we don't sell the art, the kind of thing. You do your own art, we'll give you the way of making it.
And that's so true. Other coffee machine manufacturers give you the piece of art, you can choose the frame, that's about it. With the DE1 and the Bengal, they want to give you the paintbrushes, the art supplies, all the paints, the blank canvas, everything. And then you get to create your masterpiece, not them telling you how the masterpiece should be painted. So what did I love about the Bengal? Well, it is beautiful. If you complained about the look of the old D1, the new one will blow your socks off.
The concept first came about, John asked me to reskin the DE1, so make a new cover, because some of the complaints we get of the DE1 is the looks. So yeah, we started playing with different concepts. I think I've done I've done about 5 or 6 different designs. I quite like the wraparound of the back cover sort of idea. It kind of reminded me of, there's an old Mac computer that had that sort of look to it. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
And I was saying, make it look like a private yacht. They love those swoopy things, and sometimes they're wood or they have like white and wood.
Yeah, white and
wood. So that was my contribution. Like, it doesn't look enough like a private yacht. Keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to this sort of point, and then when I showed to John, he was quite happy with the look and wanted me to continue. And then that's when we came up with the name Bengal, because Ben's starting to play around with angles. And yeah, and then funny enough, my wife always complained that things are too angular with design, so we started making more curves and try to make it a bit more of like a feminine sort of design-ish, not so masculine.
For those of you who don't like the sound of the D1, the new one is whisper quiet. In fact, we actually were there when they were recording the decibel levels, and you can see as the pressure goes up, it gets quieter and quieter, to below 30 decibels, which is incredible. So I'm sorry, I actually kind of love the sound of the DE1's vibrations, but I know a lot of people disliked it, and probably the people who haven't ever bought one are the ones who disliked it. But it is beautifully sounding now, there's no excuses. But that's not all. Ray has figured out a way to make a sound that could directly tie to the pressure. So let's say you wanted to have your old familiar sounds of the DE1 bumping away, then you could definitely have that. Or let's say you wanted it to sound like a Harley Davidson motor coming up when you're revving that engine.
Yeah. So we're probably going to have a DE1 emulation mode.
Literally any sound could be possible, and with it all being open software, you could have people coming up with Darth Vader themes made out of vibration pumps. That would be awesome. Probably better than that. There's so much planning and detail that's gone into the design aspect. The tablet, the way it sits there, it's a much bigger tablet for starters. It's very solid. It's the new Samsung A9, which is just a beautiful piece of equipment. And the way that it's mounted on there, seamless now. You love the way that the quick release drip trays, easy access to filling the water as well. I love the little slope on the front of the head. Just shows a little bit more of the dials, the icons, and it just looks luxe. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do the latte art selfies anymore because of that slope. It will make the coffee cup fall off. But don't tell John, I figured out a way that you could. And I personally love the new steam wand. It's so much stronger, so much more powerful. Unless you're used to a commercial steamer like this one, you are going to have a little bit of an adjustment if you're using the D1 steam wand because it is that much more powerful. And it's going to take a while before you get used to doing silky milk and not ending up with just a bubbly mess. But personally, I love it. I think it's so good. It's now really quick to steam your milk and you still get super nice, dry, fluffy, textured milk. But I think the piece of resistance for a lot of people who are specifically nerdy about the technology is going to be how the power supply is managed, because it is now going to be able to store some of that energy after every pulse in the capacitors, and that will punch it out. I'm not an engineer. I better let Ray tell you exactly how it's going to work, because I'll just mess it up probably.
Yeah, we just have issues also in some countries where people's voltage is so low that they aren't getting the maximum power that we should be able to give them. I decided as part of this next design that we had to have some way of compensating for temporarily low voltages or permanently low voltages. And one of the ways that we do that is we actually use each pump almost like a flywheel. So if we put a pulse into the pump, and then once the pump's done its work, we then actually scavenge the energy out of that pulse, out of that pump, and we reuse it for the next pulse. And that actually allows us to give us probably about 150 volts at least of headroom that we can then apply to the next pulse, so that we can just never have an issue with low voltages ever again. It still affects our heaters. That was one of the things that used to cause us troubles, that we would pulse the heater and it would actually cause the voltage to drop on the power line for several milliseconds, much longer than the pulse, and then the pump would fire and we'd get a runt pulse out of the pump. Part of this, energy scavenging that we do is we're actually running our pumps much more efficiently than normal by scavenging energy out of them. Instead of being dissipated as heat, we store it in a bank of capacitors and then we actually use it in the next pulse. And that should hopefully give us much more consistent and much better performance in countries with either variable voltage supply or low voltage. I honestly know a whole lot about the internal workings of other machines. I'm just in my own world. In general, no one else is monitoring the voltage or the current going to their pumps at all, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know of a machine that does.
Yeah, and so, they can't detect whether they've got run pulses. I mean, things that we can do, for example, if we do get a run pulse in the Bengal, we actually can measure exactly how much energy was imparted to the water, and we can make it up in the next pulse. So, we actually have a feedback loop now around the driving of the water specifically.
Yeah. I mean, the DE1 sort of does, because you'll see a difference in the pressure and it'll fire the next pulse quicker. The
DE1
like
does
that,
the best it can in that we can still, using the real-time pressure sensor, we monitor the pressure sensor at thousands of samples per second, and we can actually see it's like a sawtooth shape of each pump pulse, and we can detect that the pulse wasn't quite what we want, and we try and make up for it. But I've done my usual thing, which is I've added a lot of extra sensors in places where I think it might help, and then as we mess around on the firmware, we'll hopefully get closer and closer to an optimal solution.
Yeah.
And as for John, the bang for buck Buckman himself, I sat down with him and interviewed him, and I can do another video on that later on. But it's annoying when there's someone out there who's more generous than myself, because he just wants to give everyone the best possible experience they can have when buying a decent DE1, or whether you buy the Bengal. In fact, he's so darn generous. Let's say you wanted to buy the Bengal, but your partner says, you can't spend $6,000 on a coffee machine. Well, you can buy the DE1, which is only $3,600 US, and later on, he's giving the opportunity to the first couple of 100 people to buy the Bengal, to purchase the Bengal, to get that for a couple of months side by side with your DE1, to really know whether you want to upgrade. And if you do, you can send the old one back. He'll buy it off you at a reasonable price, and you can upgrade and swap it out while your partner's no looking, and they will never notice. But not only that, You can send the Bengal back if you decide that you don't have upgrade-itis and you will stick with the DE1 just the same. A lot of the software implementations are going to go down onto the DE1 anyway, so you're not going to be left behind. Some other manufacturers would never offer this. They'd rather keep you in the dark about their up-and-coming model, try to run out the redundant model at a slightly discounted rate, and then trick you into buying that before they launch the new one. Linear Mini. So that's just a teaser of what I experienced at Decon, and I've got a more in-depth video coming up about the Bengal, so stay tuned for that in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited to see where Decon goes in the coming years. We've got a great visionary in John, got an exceptional CEO with Bugs, and the team of brilliant geniuses all backing this and loving what they do, coming into work every day, trying to expand and stretch and make coffee better for you at home. I'm very excited. Again, I'm not paid to say any of this. I am just passionate. When I see things that I love talking about it, and I just get passionate. And this is what I've come up with. So I'm so excited to see where a company that's led philanthropically will go, where it can change the shape of coffee for the future generations. I love it. Anyway, I hope you loved this video. And if you want to see more videos like this in between the coffee machine reviews, as I know you love doing, well, let me know in the comments below. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Ride, your coffee coach. And as always, enjoy your brew.